Hey, everybody. All right. We got Kim, Gabe, Axel, Daniel, CS. All right. Turn those cameras on. It's Friday. Everybody should be happy and relaxed. We have Carrie Rose here.
Hello, hello. Good to see
Oh,
everyone. Hey, Gabe, how's it going?
I'm great, Carrie. How are
exciting
you?
day.
Good to see you, homie.
Always great to see you.
Yeah. Oh,
Right? Yeah,
yeah.
that's you're using LaShawn's setup, right, Carrie?
Always. What?
I love that. It's
That's
funny because I know I wanted to do that. I've tried to actually mimic like the style of your guys' video, and I'm like, I have to like plug in an extra camera. It's too much work. I'm too lazy.
We actually had to reset. We have to set it up differently for me than for him just because of angles.
Oh, you
So,
don't like the super zoom? It's like the
no,
your whole
no.
face.
I want to speak it right here. No, thank you. Just go a little further back. Yeah, but on him it
You
looks
gotta turn on the super zoom filter. You're like,
yeah,
it doesn't even look like
no,
me.
no.
All right. Well, let's get going. We're almost 5 minutes in already. So today I figure we can talk about some courses. We have our curriculum expert, Carrie Rose here. She's actually helped us with the last certification. So the social media certification. If you love it, then it was because of Carrie. And if you don't love it, it was also because of Carrie. So just so
Either
right now,
way.
it looks like it's all me. If you don't like it, it was Carrie.
Yeah.
Uh, let's see. Oh, that's a good question, Michelle. Let's just a little poll. How many people have a course that they use for a lead magnet, or you use to train your clients, or you sell? Anybody have any courses or have used courses in the past to generate leads? No? Okay. All right. Well, that's what we're working on today then is why you should make courses, how to make good courses, and kind of the process that we went through to create our last certification, which is, I think, the most comprehensive program we've created, other than the digital marketing mastery. But in terms of learning styles, it is. So welcome, Carrie.
Hey, thank you so much for having me on, Mark. It's good to see you again.
Yes, we got to take a little break after we've kind of finished the social cert. That I'm still recovering from that because it's been like a week and a half, and I'm like, okay, I could breathe again, or I know what living is again. But thank you very much, Carrie, for helping us with that because it's very impressive.
My pleasure, and thanks for the compliment, kind sir. So it was definitely a fun process. I'm excited about copywriting next, so let's go.
Yes. I think government's gonna be way easier, so that's good. But let's just talk about what you do, just kind of your background, and just how you help companies like ours create better programs.
Sure. So, fortunate enough to have a pretty extensive background in education. I thought at some point I was going to work for the Department of Ed, either at the federal or state level. And then I decided after going to Tallahassee and meeting a bunch of people that everyone seemed grouchy. And it's not on them, but like if you see people in stressful situations, you're like, do I really want to sign up for that? And so I was taking some time trying to figure out, okay, I'm getting my doctorate. What do I do with it? And I was in a world of beer, and in walked two internet marketers that introduced me to all of the world of everything that I didn't understand, which maybe some of y'all have felt at some point when you were getting started in this digital marketing thing. And so I jumped into training material after training material to try to understand the world that they were explaining to me. And what I discovered was I felt that that world was kind of lacking when it came to best practices in education. I created a process based on over 500 research studies on how the human brain connects to content. And as a result, we've gotten clients up to 96% completion rates when the industry average is 3 to 5%. So I wrote a best-selling book on course completion rates, but it doesn't even go into that process. It's more based around like marketing tactics that you can do to increase completion rates. But we were getting that kind of results just from leaning into those 500 research studies, just from leaning into like what are the actual best practices. And what I think we think it is often different than what it is. I find that people tend to teach either how they learn best. So like I can hop into somebody's online program and tell them or figure out exactly how they best digest information very easily just from seeing what they're producing. On the other side of it, I think we tend to teach how we've been taught, right? So we've seen somebody do it and we think, oh, that's the way. But you have to think back to like, what were your experiences actually like, and who were the people that actually reached you? And it probably wasn't the standard format or the standard process. So we've definitely done some things with this last certification that were a little bit more intriguing, a little bit more fun. I'm excited to see where it goes from there and what we can add to the next layer, or maybe peel off the next layer in order to make the process even better for everyone going through the certified training programs.
That's awesome. Wow. And thank you so much for all your help on that. I don't know if anybody caught it, but that was a huge stat that she talks about, which was a 90+% completion rate, where the industry standard, I don't know if you guys heard, it's 3 to 5%. So not 35%, 3 to 5%. That's standard completion rate for courses. So all the courses you see online, the master classes and the, EduLink, whatever's, like all the stuff online, 3 to 5%. So that means that the majority of courses people buy, but they don't actually finish, which sounds like, oh, well, at least you get paid. But the problem is when you're trying to be an educational institution, how do you have to get new clients all the time because only 5% of people are completing the courses. It leads to a lot of churn. So you get students and you lose students, and it's a constant process. So Carrie's ability to actually look at a course and be like, hey, here's what needs to happen for people to actually learn something from the course and of course, finish the course, leads to less churn and a lot higher course sales. So it's more than just, oh, people are learning more. It's like, yes, but they're becoming better customers is really what you're trying to generate. So Carrie is an expert at that. So just, kind of to conceptualize what you actually did for the certification, because we collaborated on the content, kind of the structure of the content. But I think that the biggest contribution was how you looked at the information and said, okay, here's how people can consume the content better. So you want to walk through kind of that process of how do you, what is learning in terms of content creation and courses?
Yeah, gosh, what is learning? Okay, I'm going to take it from here and try to get that down, right, and dilute it. And I'm glad that you're also talking about it from a financial perspective, and just to like kind of add this, give you guys a little bit of a math problem before I jump into what is learning, because I want to get to that too. I had a potential client a while back. Now we ended up not working together. They sold their company. They were also selling physical products as well. So they leaned in and were able to sell their company, but they were making 100 mil annually on their online course sales only. What they were doing to get that is they were actually applying everything inside of Digital Marketer certified training programs. Talk to them specifically at a mastermind. Everyone is like, what are you doing? What are you doing? They were just applying the material in the certified training program. So if you're in that, you're in the right direction and you're going in a good place, like, right? Based on those numbers. But at first, when I asked them what their completion rate was for their courses, they didn't know. And that's very common. And when they looked at it again, they said it was 3.9%. Right. And they had multiple programs at a 3.9% completion rate and were making 100 mil annually. Now, not to say they weren't doing fabulous, they were, but what would they have been able to do if they even raised that to a 50% completion rate? Right. And the problem is that the way that we do courses, and this is going to attach back to learning in a second here, the way that we do courses is we tend to give them everything that they think that we might need, but we're not really doing that. We tend to kitchen sink people. And when you're doing that and your completion rates are really low and you're not really sure if they're getting what they want, getting what they need, if they're happy with it and they're not purchasing other products, you don't really have everything into a way that you can actually dial in and optimize, right? We talk about measurement and optimization when it's related to marketing. We don't really look at it as much when it's related to our products. And I think that that's an area that we need to start leaning into a little bit more, especially when you're looking at lifetime value of your customer. If you're doing any kind of educational programs, the concept is you want to make sure that they're ready for the next step. So let's talk a little bit about that, because when what Mark said was, what is learning? I'm like, oh gosh, okay. All right, now I put on my philosopher's hat here for a second. What is learning? Technically it's when you have a synapse that's able to fire and wire in your brain. Okay, so you're attaching new information to old information. The synapses are wiring and firing, and you're like, oh, now I have this new thing. Well, there's a lot that can get you to that point, but let's start with the very, very basics. And this goes into course creation as well. There are studies that say that too much cognitive dissonance and people can't learn, and too little cognitive dissonance and people can't learn. So what is cognitive dissonance, and what is the Goldilocks method of cognitive dissonance? Because it seems like too hot, too cold, and like, where is the just right location? Cognitive dissonance to me is when my brain gets itchy. I like to describe things as itchy instead of painful. Like pain, and it's like, I don't want this at all. But usually if I have to stop and think about something, I think about it in terms of my brain is just a little bit itchy right now, and it's trying to get to the place that I'm not at. Right. And so that to me is that cognitive dissonance feeling. It's that I don't already have this, but there's a way to get there. Now, when we're saying too much of that itchy and people can't learn, I like to think about learning in terms of a staircase, right? Because we're already talking about wiring and firing synapses in your brain, but it's just attaching the new to the old to the new, right? And so thinking about your content and really your overall business, right, in terms of a staircase, right? And looking at a staircase process, I'll tell you this because I said overall business, and we'll jump back to that in a second, but within like 2 days time, I sat down with 2 different clients and was able to find them 12 additional products that they could create, products or programs or services, just based on the staircase, right? So you might call it your customer success path, your customer value journey. I look at it in terms of what's the next best step for these people. And when we were breaking things down with Digital Marketer, and I don't know how much of your process I'm allowed to share, so Mark, jump in with whatever you'd like to share in that. One of the first things that was given to me was an outline of where we're going. And I was told to create objectives from it. Fine, that's easy. But what I do in looking at objectives and looking at the outline is I'm looking at that staircase. We create a series of something called focus questions, which basically is, you ever like throw a ball at a dog and tell it to go fetch, right? But we don't usually tell our learners where they're going when we want them to go there. We just give them a bunch of stuff and go, I hope you catch this, right? Instead of like throwing it at them, like, here, this is the direction we're heading. So I don't know if you're familiar with the reticular activating system or not. I know Ryan's mentioned it in marketing materials before, at least on stage at M3, if you're at that event. The reticular activating system is just like, if you've ever been in like on the interstate and you like really, really want one type of car, and then all of a sudden you see that car everywhere you go. Like for me, I want a red Porsche Boxster. I don't know why, I'm just obsessed. And now everywhere on the street, this is what I see. But it can also work the opposite way. Like if I'm telling my brain I can't find something, now I can't find it at all. So if I'm in the kitchen and I'm like, if I do it to myself and I go, oh my God, I can't find the salt, I'm done. I cannot find the salt. The salt will not appear unless somebody comes in and finds the salt for me. I've told my brain I can't get it. So the first thing we do with these lessons is we create a series of focus questions that tells them, hey, I want you to find this answer by the time you're done with this lesson. Okay. And so that gives you what the student's focus is. And it also gives you, like one of my former mentors used to say, to put a fence around it. Right? It gives you parameters. So I don't know if you've ever been in a training like this before, but I was in a LinkedIn training and they were so all over the place. I think it took me 8 hours to complete, and it could have been a PDF because of everything that they attached to it that had nothing to do with what the focus of it actually was. And that's kind of normal, right? Like we think we're sharing information, but we're everywhere. And so these focus questions allow us to put a fence around our content, and it allows the student to know what they're supposed to figure out because of this lesson. And then when you put these focus questions side by side by side, it should create that staircase effect. So back to what we're saying, like, what is learning? Well, learning is attaching that old information to that new information in a way that that new person can process and apply the information, right? So I would argue that if you know something, but you can't apply the information, you haven't actually learned it. Right? Like, I know that there's such a thing as heart surgery, but I'm not out there performing it, and probably neither should you. Right? So even if I read a bunch of books and did a bunch of YouTube tutorials, that's not the world, right? But like the people that can actually apply the material are the ones that actually have learned it. So you're looking at when you're looking at not just your course content, but your overall business content, is what does that staircase look like? What does it look like from the moment that someone comes into your world to the time that they leave you? And one of the things that when Mark was talking about how thorough the course is, you want to make sure that you're creating independent learners along the way, right? And I think a lot of how we've gotten to in online courses is to create kind of that dependency, because we want them to buy the next product or purchase the next service. And I think we need to approach it from more of an abundance mindset, in that, if we create someone that's independent, then they're actually ready for the next thing. Then they're actually less troubled about it. They have that ability to enact it on their own, and they're probably less in your inbox with questions, less reaching out to your community manager with questions. They're more set up to actually go ahead and apply that information. And so you want to create something that is thorough, is rigorous, can get them to the point of application and mastery, and yet, is one step after another on that staircase.
I think that's an excellent definition, because, if you can't apply something, you don't really know it. It sounds obvious, but a lot of times you have people out there who will learn something and then they'll go out and they'll create 1,000 videos about this thing that they don't really know very much about. And they can be successful with that because the people that they're selling to know even less than them, which might not be anything, but at 3 to 5% completion rate, who cares? Like, most of the content isn't getting consumed anyway. So if you do a good job just selling the course, then you may have, gotten the result. Now, for us as an educational institution, digital educational institution, that's not good enough, because we want not only people who could learn the frameworks that we created, but can apply those frameworks, have success with them, and then come back for more. That's kind of the overall goal. So I think that one shift in thinking, for people who are thinking about making a course, like, hey, how easy is it to apply? How easy is it to get results from, is a huge component. Now, that it's a careful balance, though, because when you're talking about like the social media cert where, there's 84 lessons, which is a lot, it's tough to keep people engaged that whole time. Because for me, if I'm not teaching you every single step of every single thing you're going to have to do to execute the program, I feel like I haven't done my job as an educator. So just in that regard, if you don't want to make something that's 84 lessons and has, so much content in it, is there a way to kind of, pare that stuff down to the essentials for just getting started?
Absolutely. So, a certification to me is different than a normal online course, right? So a regular online course or a signature program, I wouldn't recommend going over 4 to 6 hours in content. So usually end up around the 35 video mark, because just to give you this, research suggests that people fall off videos around the 7-minute mark. So you don't want to make your videos any longer than 7 minutes. So about, 4 to 6 hours is generally speaking the sweet spot. And also considering, again, like a certification, we're trying to get them to mastery on everything related to social media, but we certainly don't need to do that if you're creating a smaller course on one topic, right? And I would honestly consider what's going to give your ideal client avatar the biggest result in the shortest amount of time. We often think that by giving more time, we're giving more value. And for course creators, I want to just suggest that the opposite may be true. Instead of giving more time, we're actually taking their time. So the best thing that you can do if you're creating a much smaller program is to consider, what is the tool, what is the result that you're going to be able to give them that is going to make the biggest difference for them, right? And just think about it in terms like this, like, would you pay $1,000 to solve a $10,000 problem? If you had it, probably, right? It kind of makes sense, but you don't need the problem being solved doesn't mean hours of your life or hours of their life. It just means that the problem's solved. So start thinking in terms of what you do in terms of services that can be, education material instead, or that can, scale you out a bit and offer them something that they can take in a short amount of time to get something that's high yield for them.
Awesome. Yeah, and I think that's that's the trick is getting people those, we call them quick wins or aha moments here at Digital Marketers. So it's always an objective, but it's always tricky. And like you said, certifications are different than just a standard program, because certification, what we're trying to convey is like a overall understanding of a specific topic and how it relates to our other frameworks. And it's different versus a tactical course, which is what we're going to start doing for continuing education in that sense, because I think most people shouldn't make a certification unless you're ready to support that certification, because that's for my experience, because I've done certifications in fitness as well and now in marketing. It's not just a, hey, here's something useful. It's, no, here's a official method of thinking, and it's involved. So just so everybody knows, don't go out and start a certification. It's like next level stuff. So don't call it a cert. I would make a program. So in that regard, how do you take all the concepts that you've kind of talked about right now and come up with the course topic? So okay, I know what my audience is. I know the stuff that I like to teach, but how do I get that first connection point for, say, even a free course, just because I'm trying to get leads on what I sell?
Sure. And so, well, there's a couple of things going on here. So with a free course, one thing to keep in mind is the only thing that actually has statistical data connected to it in terms of course completion rates is that if they don't pay for it, they don't finish. So just keeping that in mind, that a free course, you're not expecting them to get mastery from. It needs to be set up more for marketing purposes as opposed to educational purposes. Right? It's more of the introductory to get them a win real quick, to get them to purchase the next thing. And also, consider how you're going to do your landing pages as a result and where you're going to put your upsells. So with that being said, in order to determine your course topic, I think, one of the main things, of course, is, like you already said, figuring out your customer avatar. One of the questions that we actually have on our application in order to work with us is, have you conducted market research on your topic? It's not a, no, I won't work with you if you haven't conducted market research, but you're going to have to prior to actually building the course, right? Whether that is using the ask method with an existing audience or an existing list, or paying ads in order to do that, which I don't know if anyone's doing that anymore, but, or if you've conducted market research on your own and seen, this is what's working as far as what I'm seeing that's out there currently. But you don't want to create something that nobody wants to buy in the first place. There's a lot of time and effort that goes into course creation. I'd love to tell you it's the easiest thing on the planet. It's not. I've had clients build them really quickly and turn out well, but it doesn't mean that it always works like that. So if you're going to invest your time and your effort and energy, you want to make sure it's something that somebody's going to purchase first. So either conducting market research, asking your audience, or sell it as a beta to start. And what I mean by that is sell it as an online coaching program first, and then take the material and turn it into an online course at that point. And highly recommend at this point, you're not just selling recordings of the existing coaching program, but actually using the data that you've gotten from having that coaching program and that feedback from students in real time, and making adjustments from there as to what they actually wanted more support on, or really enjoyed or got a lot of benefit or value from.
That's a huge tip right there, because just asking people, and again, it sounds obvious, but most people don't do it. And when you're going through this course creation process, if you do a simple version of the course, and then at the beginning of the course, you say something like, what do you expect to get out of this course? Like, it's just a simple question. And then even multiple choice, like, oh, I want better understanding this. I want to be able to do this. I want to make $1 million, whatever the answers you want to provide are. But that one thing will give you so much information about what your course should be about. And then, if it's online and you're doing it just a series of videos, you could easily modify it to accommodate that, whatever people answer. Because you, just so everybody knows, like, even if you've done 1 million courses, you're never going to predict what people actually expect from your course, because that's not how content works, or at least for me, I've never been correct. So,
Well, and you can ask them afterwards too, like another survey at the end, somewhere in there, put your, net promoter score on a scale from 1 to 5. Would you recommend this to friends, family, colleague, whatever the course content's about? That's most appropriate there. But in addition, what do you wish I would have taught that wasn't included in this course? Right? Because then at that point, you can just make another 7-minute video on that topic, specifically answering that specific question. And then when you're done, say, hey, thank you so much for your feedback. I made this video, I included it in the course. Please let me know if that answers your question. And, if you need more information, let me know. But that way you're still giving them what they want, getting them on their journey, and it's giving you the feedback that you actually need to make it better.
That makes a ton of sense. So in terms of the course creation process, as you're getting started, you kind of recommend one, don't sell for free, or don't give it away because nobody will complete the course at all.
Well, if you're going to do that, make sure it really is something mini, and make sure you're using it in a smart way that is specific for your marketing purposes, right? Mm-hmm. So as soon as they click, they get the upsell. Something to that degree where there's like another way to go ahead and convert them further on. It's just the data shows that they're not going to necessarily finish it. And you might end up being, too hard on yourself, letting go of the idea altogether, not using it again, instead of just using it for what it is, which is a marketing tool. And I think that that's something entirely different.
It makes sense. Well, and just so everybody knows, if you have, say you have a 4-hour course like we're talking about now, if you just look at the data, let's say you've been doing it for a little bit, and find the videos or the lessons that are the best lessons of there, what you could do is just turn that one lesson into its own course and say, oh, this is an excerpt from this course, and if you like it, there's 20 more lessons available. So then you have a lead in. You don't have to do a ton of extra work necessarily, unless it's something that's not good standalone. But even if it is, all you have to do for most people to sell them is give them one tip that's actually useful and that they can implement today. So if it's like, hey, here's this whole system, and eventually you'll be able to create this thing, that's a hard sell versus, hey, we always use, go to your LinkedIn profile and change your bio status to this right now and watch what happens. And that's one of Roland Fraser's things that they do with Epic, where it's like, change it to investor, like business investor. And then people do it. And it's like, oh my gosh, I got 50 million inquiries about the change that I made. So that's the kind of aha moment or actionable item that will lead to, oh my gosh, I just learned one thing from them and I already got results. What can I get if I get the entire course? And then now you get the buy-in. But if you try to get that buy-in right off the bat, most of the time it won't happen, which is why, a free course would be a conversion step versus a ascension step, if that makes sense. So in that regards, have you seen any, any tips like that, where it's something people can do today, kind of how to formulate that? Because social media is easy. I could say, hey, go post this thing, and here's the graphic, and here's the description, and that's a win. But other concepts, not so much, unless you found a way to do that.
Sure. Well, okay. I'm not 100% certain that I'm totally getting your question. So if I'm not, please correct me. But I think if you're looking at splintering content, there is a website you can go to called Try Lately. And it is an app that Kate Chernis created. It's like some sort of an AI tool that will take your video content, splinter it for you. So now you've got smaller video clips. And then you can also upload images, and it can take it and add the sound underneath the images from the video, or it can take it and turn it into text. So let's say you've got one of your best lessons, the way that Mark was describing, you could even just take that. Now you've got your best lesson that you're selling as a standalone short product. Now you can splinter the video from your best lesson, right? And then have that be the social that you're putting out. So the social matches the best lesson, which matches then the course that you're selling as your upsell.
Nice. No, that's pretty much it. I was thinking more in terms of how do you formulate the aha moment, like where it's like, okay, I have this big lesson, again, the social media cert, 83 lessons, whatever it is. How do I find here's the aha that's somebody can implement it quick, you need full understanding of the concept to do it. And yeah, it'll have an effect on their business like today, which is tough. I mean, the whole concept is difficult.
Yeah, with the social cert, it's a little bit different there because there are so many hugely valuable things that do require a little bit of effort. Like the customer value journey, the customer avatar canvas, the social media blueprint. There's so much in there that isn't a quick, easy thing. I think that the quickest, easiest factors would be more from the SME videos because those are of subject matter experts. In case anyone isn't familiar with the letters, I think that those would be more along the lines of those quick wins that people are looking for. That would probably make them want to look under the hood a little bit more because they're timely, they're relevant to them, and they're more along the lines of like, hey, when people are thinking in terms of social media, they're not thinking in terms of I need to do a customer avatar canvas. They're thinking of in terms of how many times a day do I post, when do I post, where do I go to post, like those kinds of things. Even though if they haven't done the customer avatar canvas, they're not ready for that, right? Because then they're just out there talking to anybody as opposed to really reeling in the people that they're trying to connect with. And if they're just talking to anybody, you guys know they're not talking to anyone, and they're not going to get the people they're really interested in their course. So, you know, looking in terms of like quick wins, I would lean into the SME content there.
Oh, that makes sense. Well, and I think it's more, hey, here's a tip that I'm not going to explain why it's going to work, but it's going to work. And then somebody goes and does the thing and they're like, oh my gosh, it worked. Now I'm interested in learning why, which I think is it's a pretty standard learning cycle because it's, you know, in fitness, I had a gym. And so I would literally teach people how to do movements. And a lot of times it would be like, you're not even at the level where I need to explain why you're doing this. You just need to do the thing I'm telling you to do. And then you'll see the benefit. And then eventually you'll be interested in the reason why.
So that kind of works. It depends on who you have. That'll work for like 75% of your audience. There's a quarter of us that are why people that are extra annoying. I'll put myself in the bucket. Like why people are like your toddlers. Like, and I don't mean that bad, but just more, they're always walking around asking why. And if they don't hear why, they won't listen to you until they've heard why. But for the other 75%, that's going to work. Like my husband, you know him, LaShawn, he's a doer. So he's almost the type of person that will skip the entirety of the lesson, look for the activity that tells him what he needs to go run after it. And if he hits a wall, he'll come back and watch the videos. But everybody's like brain works a little bit differently in terms of what they need to hear and what they need to attach to in order to actually be able to apply it. But probably because you were working so much with people that are bodily kinesthetic, they're already kind of in the vein of like you were working with people that were working out, correct? Is that?
Yeah. So mine was kind of unique because I was teaching kettlebells, ballistic training, which most people have never even heard of, and they definitely don't know why you're doing it. But if you show them to do it and they do it enough, it's going to work. And then you could get into like, okay, here's why this type of training is effective. But until then, people just don't care, you know.
There was this guy on TikTok, just to give you like an example. And he was doing this weird up and down thing with his arms and like going like this and like that. And I was like, I'll show you next time I see you because it's better full body and I can't do it right now. But anyways, it was the weirdest thing ever. And I'm like, what? But he said, if you do this, you will clear out all of the phlegm in your system. Go ahead and give it a try, 3 minutes a day. And I was like, okay, now that you've told me, I will go do that. But like the thought of just standing here, if someone said do that, I probably wouldn't. But like it literally depends. But that's why, like, when we set up lessons to begin with, now you're talking, one thing that's different here is that I look at learning, you're looking at marketing, right? Which both the hats are valid in different ways, right? So what you're saying is more for social or for getting them intrigued and getting them to move in, right? And what I'm saying is more for like getting them to be able to apply it. So you want to, when you're getting them to the point of being able to apply it, you want to make sure you hit everybody's needs because you don't know where they're at.
No, that totally makes sense. Well, I do think there's multiple ways because, you know, getting people just to buy in initially is really important. And so you could do what I said, which is give a tip, have them effectively use the tip, and then be interested in why the tip worked. Or the other method is to go to the route of, okay, we're going to give you understanding and here's how it works. But in order to execute that side, it has to be, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I'd say the only way it's going to work is if it's entertaining enough to keep them interested to the point where they get to the understanding. Because, most people will be like, this is 6 hours and I don't really understand why I'm doing this. Like, I'm not going to do it, or I'm going to skip around until I find something interesting to keep me on board.
There's actually data that suggests that the relationship between the instructor and the person learning has an impact on their outcome measures, which is really interesting when you start to move it into a behind the camera sort of environment, right? Like I have a relationship with you, and of course I know who Gabe is, right? Like we met, but like I don't know everybody there. So the only kind of relationship we're getting right now is whether or not you like my vibe on camera, right? And that's a part of it. I've actually turned down clients before because I don't feel like everyone is meant to be an internet personality. And I don't mean that in a harsh way, but just more like if you don't have that like warm feeling about you that's going to invite people in, I think it's a lot harder to establish yourself or establish a platform. And when I say I've turned down clients for this, if I don't feel like someone's going to be successful with the work that we're going to do, and I can't, because there's no actual way for me to hand on my heart promise that that's going to happen for them. And I can't control for it because I don't deal with their marketing. Y'all as marketers, you're looking at different things. You might be like, I can get them a win no matter what. I can't do that for them. If I don't feel like someone's going to be successful with it, I won't take them on as a client. And so that's what I mean by that. But like, there is part of that when you're saying entertaining, it could be entertaining. It could just be that they really like them and they will like different things about you. That's so interesting. I had someone buy a program from me once that she liked me because she said, you're the only person that talks about online courses, but also talks about spirituality, like, and how that relates to online courses. And I was like, wow, that's interesting. I was just out there being myself. Right. And that drew them in. So whether it's your funny haha, like, and that's what's going to, be the entertainment for them, or if they're just really excited to get that end result and they can, enjoy your vibe along the way, I think that is going to have like an impact on them.
Oh, that's a huge point too, because, at the end of the day, if somebody's entertaining and charismatic and interesting enough, that the content that they're actually teaching could be terrible and they still might do all right, which is, another thing that I found in fitness, because I always had these I call unconventional trainers, these people who teach like kind of alternative methods and all this weird stuff, and they always had a problem with Jillian Michaels, who used to be like this trainer who did The Biggest Loser, and everybody be like, oh, look at what she's doing, she's doing terrible, like it's what she's teaching is horrible and it'll hurt people and the method's wrong and blah blah. I'm like, yeah, however, I bet she's had a bigger impact on people getting healthy than you have, by a margin of, I don't know how, 1,000,000 times, because she has the audience and she's charismatic enough to drive people forward, and people who see her will be like, wow, she's doing great because she, looks fit and she's helping these people. Like I was one of those people who was like, oh my God, she's going to kill somebody. But it didn't matter because she, oh, no, all those people who went through that, I'm like, that's not how you get long-term fitness. You're going to kill yourself is what's going to happen. Anyways. Yeah. But yeah, you could power through bad information, maybe not even a good platform, but having that personality that's going to drive the message home enough where people are like, you know what, I'm going to listen anyways, because they seem to know what they're talking about. So, and I do second that not everybody is built for it, because I've tried to do that. I used to be one of those people like, I could teach anybody to do podcasts, or I could teach anybody to be good on camera. And some people, I think anybody can be, but it's just a level of like, okay, it's going to take you this much work to get here, and you're right here right now. And
there's a good degree of time that I usually spend with clients just working around mindset. Even like during the course build. And we didn't really have that kind of an exchange because you were already super comfortable on camera and you already knew what you were doing, and that wasn't going on with you. But usually the things that pop up, a lot of that oh gosh, what is it? The imposter syndrome thing that pops
Yeah.
up all the time. I actually had one client where we spent a good hour and a half getting started for a filming session, just me coaching her on getting comfortable in front of the camera. And it's amazing. And now most of the time when I'm working with clients, I'll have them film themselves like over and over and over again now, so that we're not getting there when they're actually going to film their course. But it's just, it's amazing the voices that we have in our heads and how they have us shut down. They say like 95% of the thoughts that go through your mind are negative thoughts. And so when you're dealing with something where you're putting yourself out there in a big way and you're probably investing funds in order to make it happen, it just always comes back to that. And so that's where I'm like, I usually end up being more of a cheerleader role than just a curriculum advisor, because people need that kind of support when going through something like this.
That's a huge tip as well. And well, just so everybody knows, Carrie has a background in film as well, like
Theater.
directing theater, so even more difficult because it's live.
Yeah.
So that's where this is coming from. But just so everybody knows, like in terms of getting good at video, like I wasn't either. I'm like really introverted, and the only way I got past everything was by joining networking groups like BNI and doing chamber meetings and standing up and speaking publicly, and then just shooting a bunch. Like, and that's the cool thing, is that today you could practice being good on video every single day for free. And you'll get feedback on it, and people will give you advice even if you don't want it, just by posting on social media. So it is something that you could get much better at, right? Just by practicing, which is neat.
Which is all that anyone has ever done that's ever gone before you, whether they're great on stage, whether they're great on camera, whether they're great on film. It doesn't matter. All that they've done is practiced and practiced differently. And I think what really helps me with this, at least with guiding people, is that I had selective mutism for 6 years of my life. I barely spoke. So I know that if I can come from that and I can get on stage, I think the largest audience I've been on stage in front of now is like 350 people. But if I can get on stage and talk in front of 350 people and not throw up, so can you, right? So like, it's just a matter of like working. Mr. Kyle says it in one of the songs, you got to work your little muscles. You work your little muscles until they get a little bit bigger. But like Mark said, you start by filming and sending it to somebody that you trust, and then start by filming and sending it to people you don't, or posting it on social. But getting used to the sound of your own voice and the way that you look on camera, even like those can also turn into things that'll hold you back from being successful, just because it's a little nerve-wracking. It's a little scary.
Yeah. Well, I will say, if the image is what you're afraid of, like, oh, I just hate how I look on camera. What I recommend doing for practice is doing screen share videos where you just the narrator. So, and that's actually how I was just thinking, I'm like, why do I have so much experience? It's because when I had my agency, I would create 30 to 40 videos for every single client to use the stuff that I created. So I ended up creating 3,000 videos while I had my agency, and it was just me talking on camera and then trying to talk fast on camera because it took so much time. And that's where that came from. So if you're ever wondering like, oh, why does Mark seem like he's good at this, or is at least not bad at it? It's because I did it like thousands of times, and then you get better. So, and just so everybody knows, agency owners here, if you want to get better at it, start creating these screen share videos for your clients. Like, hey, I'm going to walk you through this report that we're going to send you every month, and here's the stats, and here's what they mean. And a lot of people consume video content better than written content anyways, and so it's good practice for you, and it gets your clients comfortable. And now you have a bunch of videos under your belt, and you'll be much better, just with repetition. Oh, actually, and I've taken up the entire time, but does anybody have questions? Questions about courses, making a course, how to make good courses, how to make your courses better. And I recommend everybody create courses, by the way. Ooh, I want to know how course setup influences content creation, or is it backwards? Or is it make content, then figure it out?
Okay. Would you buy the car or the gasoline first? I think that's the question here. And the way that I'm saying this is this actually comes from a friend of mine, Norbert Orlowitz, also in the digital marketing space. And he gave me that as the analogy. But for me, you've got to have like some sort of a product or offer. It doesn't have to be the course, it could be a service, but you're directing them to something before you start creating the content around it. So that's the part I would figure out first. Like, what's your lead magnet? Where is this pointing to? And Mark, correct me because I'm not the marketer. That's not my practice, right? But make sure you know what the thing is that you're going to sell and then start building the content around it. Or if you're coming up with another product idea and you're trying to get feedback from your audience and you have a large enough audience, start putting little things out there of like, hey, I was thinking about creating something like this, right? Or leading them to where you think you want them going. But 95% of bloggers don't make any money, so they're putting content out, but it's not getting them the results. So would I have a product or make content first? I'd make sure I knew what I wanted them to buy before just starting to build and build and build. But you may have a different perspective on that because I know you've done like tons of content creation, Mark. So let me know if I'm off here.
Oh no, you're totally right, because it's very easy to get on that content cycle, which I'm still in. I do it all the time where I make content that's not related to anything I'm trying to sell. I just want to make some content. And so if it's for marketers out there, if you actually want something to be effective and not to waste any time or effort, then you should really come up with your lead magnet first, your conversion product at least. So, in terms of the customer value journey, lead magnet is the subscription stage. Conversion product is, of course, the conversion stage. And these are two items that you don't necessarily have to make money off of. They could be free. I mean, not ideally, but at least you're getting the email on the free side. But yeah, if you don't set those two things, you're just going to be spinning your wheels, making content, which is okay, I think, for experimenting. And in that case, what I would do is do the short tutorials, post them on YouTube, share them everywhere, and see which ones are popular. And then you could say, okay, well, this subject looks popular because it got more views than all these other videos. So now I'm going to take the time to make a course on it. That way you can do the marketing and still get some benefit from it. But yeah, if you have those items, because I used to teach content marketing in terms of content platforms where it's like, okay, we're going to generate all this content. You're going to do all this work for a year, and then we're going to figure out how we're going to monetize it. It's not going to work for most people because you don't have that kind of time, especially if you have clients. It needs to be like right now. So yeah, I would say lead magnet, conversion product, make sure those two are set, and then work on, doing all the rest of the content to support your efforts. Because if you don't have, even if those things are bad, you'll still get more, have more impact on your business than if you just started making stuff.
Agreed.
Let's see here.
Well, there's lots in the chat.
Yeah, it's mainly Michelle. Michelle, any other questions? What? Let's see, what haven't we covered in regards to courses that you think would be useful? Well, actually, let's just talk about that. What's a common misconception about creating courses that you see a lot of business owners have?
Common misconception.
About the creation process or the result it's going to have, or why you're doing it.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest one we touched on earlier, but probably lightly, that you need to put everything in the course that you needed in order to become you, right? So people tend to kitchen sink this thing, and I see it a lot, especially with people with huge hearts. I think course creators in general are just like really giving huge-hearted people that want others to win. And they're like, their only way they're going to win is if I give them everything. And really, people don't want to be you. No offense. But think about it in these terms. Like, I am a walking internet movie database. My first job was working at a video store. I can play 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon like nobody's business. You don't want me to put all that in a course on course creation, right? But like, that's what it took to be me, And so when you start thinking like that, well, that sounds absurd. But we tend to do that with these products and make them overinflated and a lot larger than they need to be. But again, just going back to what's the fastest way to get them the biggest result they can have, and now build things off of that. And also, I'll just add this too, like, I think this is valuable for your audience. Always consider additional products and services that you can offer inside of your course. You can test things out from your course itself. There's nothing that says that there can't be a link to another something from inside your course. Let's say you've got something that is a little bit more difficult for them to learn, right? It doesn't mean don't teach it or don't go as far in detail as you would because you want to sell them on something. That's not it. But or that's not a vibe. They're not going to really like it. But if you say like, hey, if you'd like an additional coaching around this, because you get stuck on something, here's a link to go ahead and purchase that, right? You can always do upsells from inside your program and test additional offers and services. Now, let's say you get a lot of people that want coaching on that one thing. Well, what if you had another offer where you had a VA specifically just hired to do that one thing, and all they did was that one thing, and then anyone that went through your program, when they got to that point, they could just purchase it done for them, right? But inside of the program. So like just looking at different ways to help people so that it's not just all like static.
No, that's a huge tip. I love the, don't kitchen sink your course. I'm going to make it graphic for that one. Because I'm super guilty of it because I'm like, well, here's what I had to do to learn this. And so I'm going to teach you to it versus here's what you need to get started, entertained and get interested and blah, blah, blah to just get them to keep going. Because it's, I mean, when I list like stuff that I've learned how to do, I'm like, it's 20 years. That's how long it took me to learn all this stuff. And I'm not going to teach you how to do that in a course, which is tricky. I will say this though, and just another tip, if you are making courses, don't be afraid to sell or to publish your course information publicly, or at least some of it. Because what you'll actually see on the Digital Marketer YouTube channel, sometimes I'll take an entire lesson from a certification and I'll just post it publicly. And I'll say, this is lesson whatever of the certification. And usually it does really well. It's directly connected to a product. Now, I didn't have to make a commercial, didn't have to make a mini course, didn't have to do anything. I just took a video we already had, posted it publicly, and then it's already connected to a product. So if you want an easy way to promote a course, just share some of the content publicly and nobody's going to know. Because usually the feedback I get from that is like, well, I don't want to share the good stuff, or I don't want people to get this for free, or people who pay might be offended that I shared some of the information publicly. Nobody cares. Like, and then the people who do care most of the time where they're like, hey, I paid for that and blah, blah, blah. You're like, well, that was 5% of the course. So do you want a 5% refund? Or most of the time you just be like, okay, well, whatever. It's just one lesson to get people interested. So
and they don't know how deep it goes, right? Like they're getting goods from you, but they don't know how much more is on the other side. So it gets exciting. You can give them your best stuff inside of that and just get them excited about what else is out there that they don't have access to that they need to purchase from you.
Yeah. And a lot of times, well, I always point at, movie previews where new movies coming out and you're like, oh, I'm excited to see. Actually, I never watch previews if I'm interested in a movie coming out, because what they do is they literally tell you the entire plot of the movie, like to the end at this point, where I'm kind of like, I don't need to watch this movie. You just showed me the exact progression of everything that happened in a 30-second preview. And now I don't need to see it, but I'm weird. So most people though will see that, they'll be like, oh my gosh, this movie's going to be amazing. And then they go buy the tickets. So yeah, just don't be afraid of sharing the good stuff because you think that, people need to pay for this to get access to anything. It's like, no, give them the coolest crap that you created for this thing. And they'll be way interested. And the people that you want, which are the people who want to know why, will come and buy your product. So don't be scared. Probably doesn't even watch the end credit scenes. I watch the end credit scenes, Gabe. The heck, that's like the only good part of Marvel movies.
I Google them to see, like, how many there are in each movie before leaving the theater. Like, yeah.
I know you do, because you're like, oh crap, I left before the third end scene that they put in there that has the real Easter eggs. Like no. No. Actually, I think that practice is going away a little bit, at least, or they're just making better movies. I don't know if you guys have you guys seen Nope? I think it was Jordan Peele's.
I did see Nope. Yeah.
That was fantastic. If you guys haven't seen that movie, watch that movie. I thought it was Guardian. Was Guardian good?
Guardians is good, and there's end scenes, so I'm just saying you should stay.
Guardians, the first one was so good, and then I don't know. I think I'm just kind of burnt out on Marvel because I'm like, ugh, what CGI army is attacking this time, and the universe is gonna end. Like, no, you went too far. Jump the shark. Long time ago. Anyways, thank you so much, Carrie, for coming on. Where can people learn about you and what you do?
Sure. So fastest way would be to reach out to me on social, Dr. Carrie Rose, pretty much everywhere, except for I don't really play on Twitter that often, or go to of-course.us, like United States is my website. So yeah, come say hi.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Carrie. Just so everybody knows, we're using Carrie all the time now. So all the new materials have actually been reviewed and impacted by the awesome tips that she gave here. So thank you for that, Carrie. And thank you all for tuning in.
Bye, guys.
Have a good weekend.